You know that person at the party who somehow knew you were lying about enjoying your job before you even finished your sentence? Or your friend who can tell when someone's attracted to them from across the room? They're not psychic, and they're definitely not lucky guesses. There's actual science behind why some people can read others like an open book while the rest of us are stumbling around in the dark, completely missing signals that are apparently screaming right in our faces. Here's what most people get wrong about this ability. They think it's about watching for one big tell, like someone touching their nose when they lie or crossing their arms when they're defensive. But real human behavior doesn't work like a cheap poker tutorial. The people who genuinely have this skill are looking at the space between what you're saying and what your body is doing, and that's where the truth actually lives. So what separates people who can read others from people who can't? Researchers found that it comes down to something called thin slicing, which is your brain's ability to find patterns in behavior from incredibly small amounts of information. But here's the twist that changes everything. This isn't a mystical gift you're born with. It's a skill that gets sharpened through specific types of experience, particularly experiences that forced you to become hyper-aware of emotional climates as a survival mechanism. Children who grew up in unpredictable environments, where a parent's mood could shift without warning, or where they had to constantly assess whether a situation was safe, often develop this ability out of necessity. Their nervous systems literally rewired themselves to detect microscopic changes in tone, posture, and facial expressions because missing those signals could mean emotional or physical danger. What starts as a defense mechanism becomes an unconscious superpower in adulthood. They're tracking what psychologists call micro-expressions, flashes of genuine emotion that cross someone's face in a second. While you're listening to someone's words, they're watching the tiny muscle movements around the eyes and mouth that reveal what's really happening underneath. But it goes deeper than faces. People who can read others are constantly building what's called a baseline for each person they interact with. They notice how you normally stand, talk, and gesture when you're relaxed. So when something shifts, even slightly, they catch it immediately. You start tapping your foot when you usually don't? They notice. Your vocal pitch goes up half a note when discussing a particular topic? They notice. And if you're finding this interesting so far, go ahead and subscribe and leave a like, because we're about to get into the uncomfortable part that most people with this ability won't tell you about. People with this ability often struggle with trusting what others say because they can see the gap between the performance and reality. They're stuck in this weird limbo of knowing the truth, but also knowing that pushing it will create conflict. They see through social niceties and white lies that most people accept without question, which can make normal social interactions feel exhausting, because there are suddenly three conversations happening: the words being spoken, the body language contradicting it, and the internal calculation of whether to acknowledge what they're seeing. This is why some of the most socially intelligent people you know might also seem the most isolated. They're reading a completely different story than everyone else in the room. But here's the strangest part about having this ability. You become a living lie detector in your own relationships, and it kills spontaneity in ways that are impossible to explain. Your partner tries to plan a surprise party, but you know about it 2 weeks early because their behavior pattern changed. Your friend says they're happy for your promotion, but you catch that quarter-second flash of envy before they've even processed feeling it. So you end up performing ignorance just to let the people you love maintain their version of reality. You have to pretend you don't see what you're seeing, which means your closest relationships involve a constant, low-level act of emotional theater. The next time you meet someone who seems to know exactly what you're feeling before you say it, remember they're not showing off some party trick. They're probably just reading the same signals they've been trained to survive on their entire lives. And they're making split-second decisions about whether to let you know or to do you the kindness of looking away.